Hi everyone, I am Dr. Harveer Singh. I have about 16 years of full-time industry experience and 3 years of consulting experience. I also have a PhD degree in business strategy and I am a ISO, PECB, ISO 42001 and ISO 27001 lead auditor and certified trainer. So today we will be doing a very interesting exercise about identifying and reporting a non-conformity. Right? You might be aware of the fact that non-conformities are related to the outcomes of the audit. As we perform the audit activities, we are done with the audit activities, we have come to the conclusion of audit, and then we have something which is the outcome of the audit. Within the outcome, there could be conformities and non-conformities. Non-conformities literally means some behaviors of the AIMS which are non-compliant, which are not in line with what was expected, right? So it's a very interesting interactive exercise about how do we identify and report the NCs or non-conformities, right? In the real environment, in the real training environment, if there are about 12 students in the class, I will divide them into 3 groups of 4 each, and I will go through all those pointers that I'll be going through right now. And then I will divide them in different groups. They will do the exercise in different groups, and then they will come back to the main group, and we will have one person assigned a role of the voice of that group. That person will speak the outcome of that exercise. And then we will identify the learning of this exercise. We will have some cross questions, and then we will wrap up the exercise, right? So let's talk about what is the objective of this exercise. Here, this exercise will help the learners to evaluate the audit evidence collected during the audit, right? First of all, we have to evaluate whatever, you know, evidences we have collected from the entire audit process. The audit might have gone for 5 working days, 10 working days, 20 working days, whatever be the case, right? So we have to evaluate the audit that the evidences that we have collected. Then we have to determine whether there are non-conformities existing within those evidences or not, right? And then if there are non-conformities, we have to draft a clear non-conformity statement, right? So that is how we have to do. So as we know that during the audit process, auditors have to compare the objective evidence. The evidence always have to be objective, because if the evidences are subjective, it might result in little bit of confusion, right? So we have to maintain the objectivity within the entire audit ecosystem, right? For AIMS audit, the criteria may include the requirements which are defined for ISO IEC 42001, right? Wonderful. Let's move on. Now, what is the scenario? Let's talk about this scenario. So we want to talk about the AI risk assessment process, right? This is a specific scenario taken for this particular exercise, right? So during an audit of an organization implementing an AIMS, the auditor reviews the AI risk management process. All right. The organization states that all AI systems must undergo risk assessment before deployment. That is the need, that is the requirement of the client, that is the requirement that is coming from the client side, whose AIMS we are evaluating through audit process, right? All right. During the audit, the auditor observes. What were your observations as an auditor? You are the observer, you are the auditor. What you have observed during this particular audit? From the documentation point of view, you have observed that the documentation describes the AI risk assessment procedure. Okay, okay, all right. What about the completed assessments? So in this section, you have identified the evidence that several AI projects have completed the risk assessments. Very good. That's a very good observation that you have done. What about the gaps identified? One recently deployed AI system does not have a documented risk assessment. That is a very important observation that you came up out, right? That is what you have observed, that there is one AI system that was deployed that does not have the documented risk assessment. So this is a clear indication for you that yes, there is something wrong. Now, what is the depth of this wrong thing? We are not aware of it right now. The only thing we are aware of it right now is that there is some problem, right? That is what we are aware. Okay, let's move on. Wonderful. Very good observation so far. Let's analyze this evidence. So participants should evaluate the scenario and determine the non-conformity. Does the evidence indicate a non-conformity? By now, you know that there is one system which is not compliant. So you have to identify relevant documentation and you have to evaluate that documentation with regard to this one AI system which is non-compliant. And then you have to identify whether there is a very clear-cut non-conformity that is visible or not. What about the requirement? Which requirement has not been fulfilled? Now let us assume that as you do the exercise, as you evaluate the documents, you have a very clear idea that yes, there is a non-conformity. But you might ask this question to yourself first, that okay, I have identified the non-conformity, but then which requirement is challenged corresponding to this non-conformity? So you have to identify that specific requirement which is challenged by this non-conformity. So now you have the non-conformity and now you have the requirement. But what is the connection between these two? What is the connection between these two? The evidence is the connection between the two. There is an evidence which connects the requirement with the non-conformity. So here is the non-conformity, here is the requirement, and here is the connection. Here is the connection. This is the connection. So this connection is the evidence, right? So you have to identify the evidence. Three core important things you have to identify. Number one, non-conformity. Number two, requirement. Number three, your evidences. So participants in this exercise should also discuss whether the issue should be classified as major or minor, right? You have to first create the definition of what do you call as a major non-conformity. What do you as an auditor understand by the major non-conformity? And what do you as an auditor understand by the minor non-conformity? You have to create a simple definition of these terminologies. Now, as you create the simple definition of these terminologies, you are clear. And if there are other people or other employees or your auditors, your clients who are asking, you are able to confidently explain them the definition of the major non-conformity and the definition of the minor non-conformity, right? That is one. What else you have to discuss? What additional information the auditor might request. I know I'll tell you one scenario. In the real life auditing environment, there might be a lot of questions that are coming to you. Why do you think this is a non-conformity? What kind of evidence you have identified? Can you show me an example? Can you show me how this links with the requirements? Can you tell us which requirement is being challenged by this non-conformity? Can you tell us the depth of this requirement, of this non-conformity? Can you tell us the seriousness and the impact of this non-conformity? Why should we take it seriously, right? All those questions might come to you from different people, from different stakeholders, right? So you as a participant of this exercise have to identify what additional information the auditor might request, right? Okay. So what are the examples of the non-conformity statements? You have the requirement. Let's take an example of the requirement. AI system must undergo risk assessment before the deployment. That was the requirement. Now, what is the objective evidence that you have collected in reviewing this requirement in the real life system? One deployed AI system did not have documented evidence of a completed risk assessment. That is the objective evidence. Now you have the requirement and evidence. What is the non-conformity that you will raise out of this information? You will raise the non-conformity as the organization deployed an AI system without documented evidence of the risk assessment, indicating that risk assessment procedure was not consistently implemented, or it was not implemented the way it would have been implemented, or the way it has been documented, right? So what is your learning from this exercise that you will go through? Audit findings must be based on the objective evidence is a very, very important learning from this exercise. The requirement, evidence, and gap must be clearly identified. And these will be in sync with each other. These will be synchronized with each other. And non-conformity statements should be clear, factual, and concise. These should be your very clear, crisp, to the point, key takeaways from this exercise, right? From where you will get the guidance, from where you will get more information about this process. You will get by reading ISO 19011, right? So please go through ISO 19011 guidelines and you will get more interesting facts, points, understandings, and learning, right? We will conclude this video here. I hope you have enjoyed this session and keep learning and keep rocking. Thank you.